Before we jump in, I just wanted to give a little context. I'm Lauren. I'm the managing director of the nonprofit Stop Stalking Us. So today will be very conversational, but I'll lead us through with some questions. And we'll talk about this more in depth throughout our conversation. But I know what drives the three of us to do this work is the shocking lack of resources and support for stalking victims, which is wild given the prevalence and severity of this crime. So we're doing a total of 4 virtual panels this month, which is Stalking Awareness Month. And it struck me at some point that I think all of the survivors we're speaking to don't actually know their stalker at all, which is, like, as we know, much less common than it being somebody that the person knows in some capacity. But the reality is that everyone we're hearing from is somebody who's already had to make the decision to go public with their story. And that's another reason why Lily started Stop Stalking Us and why we exist. We want everyone to be able to tell their story, and we know that many people understandably aren't able to for a lot of reasons. So we're working to share stories about people from all different backgrounds with different circumstances, who may not have told anyone about what they're facing, but we want to help them do that in a way that's safe and anonymous. So if anyone's interested in sharing your own experience, you can do that on our website, stopstalkingus.com. And there's also a long list of resources on our website that can hopefully offer some guidance, whether you're the target of a stalker, or you know someone who is, or you want to learn how to better protect yourself. So with that, I want to kick the conversation off with Lily and Lenora. You have each been incredibly vocal about sharing your own stories publicly, but would love to just get sort of a brief overview of your stories.
Yeah, because everyone's just like, who is this girl? Like, what's her deal? So yeah, my name is Lenora Claire. I'm a multi-violent crime survivor, advocate, activist. I'm a lifelong entertainment industry professional. I have a company, Lenora Claire Consulting, where we work to improve victim representation in media. And I'm a founding member of the Los Angeles District Attorney Crime Victims Advisory Board, where I advise on all gender-based violence issues for the city of Los Angeles. I'm going to try and keep my story as brief as possible, but these are complex, very intense, heavily nuanced stories. Mine's 11 years deep. So the ultimately short version of it was, my story started 11 years ago. I own an art gallery. I was living my best life. And I also have to preface with my story that my stalker, because he's schizoaffective and he has erotomania, which is, you know, a psychiatric disorder where they have false relationships that don't exist. But I also really, it's important for me to not stigmatize mental illness and say not everybody who's schizoaffective is dangerous. My stalker is. And so he'd already had a history of stalking Ivanka Trump in New York. I didn't know this. He sees me in a magazine. He comes to my art gallery, becomes fixated on me. A lot's happened over 11 years, but yeah, I just have to sort of give that story. And my stalker attempted to kidnap me. I had to catch my stalker myself. I had a terrible experience with law enforcement. They told me to dye my hair, get off the internet, even though I had, you know, this mountain of evidence. And then, yeah, I caught my stalker myself. He was convicted in 2018. I put him in jail 5 times. There's a lot to my, I'm really just trying to just give the highlights because I want to hear Lily's story and we'll get into mine, but that is just the weirdest. And the other thing I always like to talk about just real quick is that, you know, I recognize that I am somebody that comes in with like a mountain of privilege, and I was still treated like shit by law enforcement. And so I always sort of, when my story is a very bizarre, weird one, but that's one thing that I find that we all have in common. None of us are like everything about my experience was handled so well. I love how the prosecutors talk to me. And so that's part of why, even though it's not necessarily fun to be public with your story, but I'm always like, I recognize all this privilege, and I'm like, I need to be twice as loud for everybody who can't. So that's kind of I just always like to explain my motivation, because people are like, why do you like to live in your trauma? Why do you like to keep, and I'm like, this is what motivates me. So that's the sort of wrapped up version.
Thank you. Yeah.
Wow, those are some really excellent points that you just culminated your statement with. Yeah, being who are we to talk about our trauma, and that kind of the assumptions around that as a woman with kind of pity porn and the kind of just self-aggrandizing relationship that people think people can have around their suffering and their struggles and why we talk about it. And I will say that my intentions, just starting kind of in reverse, really are about galvanizing a cultural shift to change how we talk about stalking and how we address violence when there is no visible crime impact, therefore, and that's really where the healing has been for me on my end, is in helping other people feel less alone. And it's been a great privilege to be able to do that. Anyway, I'm going to dial back. I was a professional dancer for 10 years, New York City and abroad. I was dancing on tour with David Byrne from the Talking Heads when a man I did not know saw me and equally has erotomania, and he fixated on me and built a web of lies, and it's been 13 years and going. I've never met him. He has stalked me in multiple ways. I was in hiding. He came to New York to find me. I traveled across the country. He followed me, lived under surnames, has not been digital in all forms, has been quite on the ground in sort of old school stalking style. However, I've never confronted him. He does have a mental illness, but I am not actually privy to what that is because of his order, his sort of protective, the privacy that he gets based on kind of how the law has defined him. And long story short, I built a case with the Special Victims Unit in New York City. We had 5 misdemeanors against him, and he was deemed unfit. There's an exam called the 730 in which people are examined as to whether they can stand trial and by themselves and kind of represent themselves. And he was not able to, according to that test. So the case fell through. Had it been a felony, it would have been a very different outcome. And now I am without a restraining order. The case is gone. Statute of limitations has far surpassed, and navigating it on a different scale at this moment. I am not just that. I've moved into filmmaking and directing, and really kind of a multifaceted artist and performer, working in long form narrative, short form, commercials, documentary, but always using body as a narrative tool and kind of a stylized dreamscape, visceral cinema. So basically, I've created this nonprofit and working with Lauren to work in conjunction with that initial publicity that I knew would start a conversation, wanting to provide resources, create awareness, and generally start new kinds of conversations around stalking, violence, and how we measure violence in our culture of visibility.
And I know, Lenora, you touched on this a little bit, but was there sort of something that happened when you first decided to speak out publicly? And what was that like?
Sure. So sort of midway. So my stalking started in 2011. I got rape threats, death threats. I went to police. They told me to dye my hair, get off the internet. And my stalker already had a history of stalking Ivanka. And he tried to kill himself in Ivanka's store. Right. So this is a really scary individual. And then he started sending death threats to my boss. And I work in casting. That's my day job, which, casting, that's like an in and out sort of quality to the office. So everyone's terrified of workplace violence. So I was like, I don't want to say that I normalized the first 3 or so years of rape and death threats, but what else was I going to do? Like I had to keep working. I was routinely terrified, but I just had to function. And I don't know if your listeners are like me. I'm the kind of person where there's a certain amount that I can tolerate for myself. But if you come after somebody that I love, that's a whole other thing. And my boss was my mentor. So that was when I was like, I'm going to go back to police. I'm going to try again. And I went back to LAPD, their Northeast division. And I just said, look, my boss is getting dead. You have to do something. And they were so god awful to me. And again, they just kept repeating, dye your hair, get off the internet. And I was just like, fuck this. I work in TV. Like, it was out of necessity. I didn't want to die. I was like, they're not helping me. I have to get attention. And so that's why I did the first TV show. And I think it was Jezebel. I think they were the first people to cover it. But I did a show, which was what teamed me up with Rhonda Saunders, who's amazing. She's the woman who's very responsible for writing the first stalking laws, not only in California, but the entire country. So it was just, it was worth it just for that, because let me tell you, I went forward before Me Too when the culture was really, it's not like it's so awesome now to come forward, but back then it was like even worse. And I remember seeing tweets. There was a show called Crime Watch Daily that I did, and boy, did they have a field day over my choice of lipstick color, how I looked. They told me, dress how you want to be addressed. It was not a great experience, but that's why I chose to be public. It was really, my back was against the wall. I lived in look, like a lot of people in LA working in entertainment, just a really modest apartment that anybody, like I was so scared that I was just like, I have nothing to lose at this point. And then also I was sort of forced into being public because, like, your listeners might not know this, but outlets like TMZ, they go through court filings. And because my restraining order, he stalks celebrities. So anytime you see like celebrity adjacent names, like Daily Mail, people ran with I didn't even have a choice. It was already kind of out there.
Oh, so, wow. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
And Lily, what about you?
Taking the leap to go public was not easy, actually. I was working on a feature film inspired by the story of a dancer and a stalker, but I never said that it had anything to do with me. So it was when I was loosely talking to the editor-in-chief of Glamour magazine, Cindy Levy, at the time, and I was working for her, and I was talking about working on this script, and it kind of slipped that how intense it was to make something based on a personal experience. It was sort of a casual conversation. And I opened up and I said, yeah, I'm sort of taking the story, but trying to make it, sellable and interesting. And I was sort of in this really gnarly relationship to what was true. And then what would be enticing. And it was way I was sort of staying sane throughout this time, was to make something out of it. It was also a way to kind of separate myself from it and see it at a distance, and a real coping mechanism. And she said, this is something I hear all the time, but not talked about in this way. Listen, there's an opportunity here. We need to talk about this. And I know a great writer, editor, this woman, Elizabeth Brody. And so she was working on women's rights issues. And she said, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to do a little piece? And I was thinking, okay, wow, it's like, no, not even friends know about this. And suddenly I'm in Glamour magazine, which is not necessarily my community either. But it was an opportunity, and I felt like, wow, if I can use my positionality to talk about things that other people don't talk about and create a space and kind of dig into this, which we need to, I need to. I felt like that was the next step in my own healing, but it was also a responsibility I have given where I am.
Yeah. And one thing I know from both of you is that because you have been so vocal, and because there are so few people who are able to talk about their stories, that you're both contacted really, really frequently by victims who don't know where else to turn. Maybe they've also gone to police and had a bad experience, or they just, I think there's sometimes people who don't know, like, is this stalking or is this something else? They're just not sure. And so I know you're both contacted, weekly with people who are in really dire situations. And so I know that it's hard in those moments too to give advice. You're not lawyers. A lot of it's from your own experience. And there's a lot of nuance in stalking. There's something that might be true in California may not be true in New York. Like there's the federal element, like there's a lot of layers to it. But want to just kind of go through some of those things to like even understand for people who are at that beginning stage or kind of coming to terms with what might be happening to them. Is there anything that you wish you had known or done, like when you first realized that you were being stalked, or the severity of the situation?
Who do you want to go first?
You go, Lenora.
Okay. So for me, it really blew up like 2016, 2017, because Vice did a piece that was called The Erin Brockovich of Stalking, which, like, how do you live up to that? I don't know how you're supposed to. And then we did My 48 Hours, which had like 17 million viewers. So if you think about what that platform meant, right? And you said weekly. I wish it was weekly because that'd mean less people. It's daily. It's been daily for me since then. And, you know, first when I started taking, because it's led me to do, I've done like over 100 restraining orders. I do court support for people. I do all that kind of stuff if they're local. But what I started doing is at first, like, it's funny because I'm married to a lawyer now, right? So I really understand exposure. I'm like, and that I am not a lawyer. My dad was a doctor. Doesn't mean I'm going to operate on you. My husband's lawyer. Doesn't mean I'm a lawyer, right? So I was like, okay, bare minimum, right? I can be an ear that can hear you, and really we can relate on a way that your friends and loved ones who are maybe the most well-intentioned, compassionate, that they don't understand. So I'm like, bare minimum, I can offer that. But because I've done the restraining orders, you know, I understand things like Bureau of Victim Services and compensation. Like, for example, when people in California come to me, I let them know that they're entitled to $5,000 worth of free therapy. No one tells you this. Cops don't tell you this. Your prosecutors don't tell you this. So I sort of, you know, work on everything from helping them understand risk minimization, right? There's so much, because a lot of times they don't meet the criteria to either get a protective order or get law enforcement to move on anything. So you've got to like really focus on the risk minimization. Then you've got to go, what's your support system? Because this is not going to be over. And the, you know, it's look at us, 11, 13 years here, right? So it's really like building that for people, and then walking them through the process of how to get the restraining order, you know, what the impact's going to be for their career, for dating, you know, all that kind of stuff. And when people always ask me, you know, it's too complicated to say, what do you wish you would, because there's so much you have to assess, right? But if there's just like one thing that I want people to take away, it's that it's not your fault, especially when I'm dealing with people where it's statistically now, because we have these new stats, it's about 50-50. It's more or less that 50% former intimate partner, 50% acquaintance or stranger, like the category that we both fit into. So I really see it with the people where it's former intimate partner, is that you didn't do anything wrong. And life is already hard. You're in a really hard situation. Do not make it harder on yourself. So that's just like the one universal truth that I kind of just say to everybody. I always say to people too, it's like, say your friend was telling you the situation, right? You wouldn't judge them. So don't be a hypocrite. Don't be hard on yourself. Don't, you know, because there's a lot of people who are like, well, you know, if you weren't performing, if you weren't so out there, if you weren't so this, you know, it's like, I just can't play that game. So anyway, I've talked too much. I want to hear what Lily has to say on the subject.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I really echo a lot of what you're saying. I think to distill, had I known, I think in a nutshell, it really has to do with taking my fear seriously, which is, you know, similar to what you're saying, Lenora, and not doubted myself, not internalized the fact that I had done something wrong and I deserved it, because nobody recognized. That's a big thing, because nobody's recognizing my experience, or I'm not talking about it confidently, right? I basically doubt myself. I isolate. I've really worked on this. I've not asked for help. I've not felt entitled to help, but really having a better relationship, a more understanding and kind relationship to my fear, and knowing that if I am afraid, that there is something to be afraid of. and really, having some really solid self-care mechanisms. Again, what you were saying is sort of, okay, so I'm feeling panicky. I'm feeling, I don't know what's real. Nothing's stable. I feel alone. Am I making this up? It's all one big clusterfuck, panic, you know, ice queen, bitchiness, get away. Like, you know, I had many kind of dark ways of handling this, which are evident in self, you know, in reflection. Yeah. So that's the smorgasbord of what I would say. And I'll put a period on that.
No, that resonates so much. And one thing I got to just throw out too, it's the advocating for yourself. This is a crime that is it's a weird crime, because I don't know how to call it any other way. It's a misunderstood crime. I always say it's like sexual assault in the 70s, right? The way that's kind of like where we are with the lack of understanding. And because it's a weird crime, and because law enforcement, it's the same thing if you go to a doctor that's not a specialist. You can't expect them. They don't really get the specialized training. They don't have forensic psych backgrounds, right? And the other thing people don't understand about law enforcement is that they're not there to prevent crimes. They're there to investigate crimes after it's happened, which that's like, that makes your head explode too. So when I say it's the advocating for yourself, like it took me 9 years to get my the felony, and that's because I'm a piece of work. I'm a pain in the ass. I wouldn't let go of it. I would, and again, there's also people where we're all in a different journey. And some people are like, I can't, I don't have, and I respect that too. Like not everybody handles stuff the same way. That some people, the best choice for them is to move. For other people, it's the fuck no, I'm not moving. Right. So you really have to like listen to the individual and what's the best choice for them. But the universal truth involves the advocating for yourself, because there's that support isn't necessarily built in. So, if you're, and that can mean a lot of things. That doesn't necessarily just mean law enforcement or, as far as prosecution, but it's advocating for yourself at work and saying, look, I need a parking space close by with good lighting or whatever that is. Right. Or, advocating for yourself in that, like, I've had to go to my neighbors. It's so embarrassing and be like, this is my situation. Here's, so it's really like, whatever your capacity is, it's like kind of embracing that and going with it.
And I think knowing if it's hard for you to get there, what do you need to get there? It's certainly, it's just much easier not to ask for help, but it's actually not in the long run,
Yeah. And that's for anybody that haven't, our first session was with Dr. Patrick Brady, who's a researcher, and we'll make sure a link is available to that. Such an interesting conversation. And one thing he said that really stuck with me, just because you were both kind of, talking about your fear in relationship to that, is I think especially as women, we're socialized to like not listen to those cues, and we become really like we doubt them. And I thought he just had such a helpful way of framing that, like when you know something in your gut, like it's not just this like kind of woo-woo thing, that like it is your amygdala sending your body a signal that's like something is not right, and how important it is to listen to that. And if you're hearing that, like that is the truth, and you don't need to start second guessing yourself and letting the other parts of your brain like take over. Like you really have to listen to that, because our bodies do know how to protect us in a lot of different ways.
It's great, Lauren.
Yeah. I mean, you both have had really different experiences, like, and Lenora, I know you've seen this with a lot of different people about going to court. And I guess, like, are there things that surprised you? Are there things that like that you tell people of like, this is kind of what it has to be or to look like? And I also feel like I'm curious if you like, sometimes I feel like there's like really shitty advice you have to give people in terms of like how you present yourself, where it's like, it shouldn't be this way, but this is how it is. So I'm curious what that's like for you.
Yeah, so in regards to court, a couple different things. So when you're going to get your restraining order, what they don't tell you is that, at least the courts that I've been involved with, there's kind of like two sessions. There's the 9 a.m. session and the 1 p.m. session. And they don't tell you that when your thing says 9 a.m., there's 10 of you. They stack it all up. So you think you're like any other appointment, I show up at 9, whatever. No, you were there in the hallway for possibly hours with your abuser, with the offender, right there with you to intimidate. They don't prepare you for this. I've been fighting to get, I'm like, we live in LA. We live in the town of the green room. Like, how hard is it to have a special room that victim survivors can be in so that they're not harassed and intimidated? And that's actually why I started doing court support, because I was there with a friend and I saw a woman, she's about my age. I will never get her out of my mind. She had 2 black eyes holding a baby. And I don't know if this guy was the husband, boyfriend, or what to her, but he kept mad dogging her to the point that she just left. And it was so horrifying, right? So that's one thing I'm always like, have somebody to walk you from your car, because it's for a lot of us, it's really embarrassing. You don't know how it's going to go, but have somebody. Do not go by yourself. Have an advocate if you want to keep it private from your whatever. That's one thing about court that I'm always like kind of. The other thing is that judges are people. There's good ones, there's bad ones, their love language is facts and evidence. I see a lot of times in court, people come in from the emotional place, right? And they're like, talking about, I kind of call it, I should have a better word. And again, it's not gender specific, but like I call it bad boyfriending, where they're in court and they're like, he cheated, he gaslit. It's like, okay, these are shitty behaviors, but the judge doesn't give a shit about that. Let's lead with the other stuff, right? And so I kind of have to like explain that to people. It's like you need the other stuff, but because otherwise you can come off like a bitter ex. And that's not going to do you any favors. So it's really like, okay, like I'm telling person, I'm like, listen, he's stalking you. Let's lead with the crimes. We don't need to have the rampant cheating. It's really not relevant. And then the point that you brought up, and I don't remember if we've talked this before, you just instinctively knew. One of the hardest things that I have, and I say this as like a proud intersectional feminist, but one of the hardest things, the bitter pill I've had to swallow, is especially when you have like a really confident woman. Maybe she's successful in her area of business. We're taught like come in with that confidence, right? Sometimes in court that can almost work against you because the judge needs to see your fear, which isn't to say you can't be confident and exhibit fear. I think that's Lily and I, right? Like you can strike that balance, but I've seen people where you kind of like, the posture, you're like, all right, this is the fight. You come in and it's like you're bringing your bad bitch, which you should be able to come in if you want to, if bad bitch energy is what you need to bring. But at the same time, I've seen it work against victims in the court because the judge is like, they didn't look that scared, which is like insane to me. Right. So one of the hard things that I've had is to sort of like in kind of explaining that. And again, the last thing I ever want to do is tell anybody to alter, like that's so hard for me. But I'm just like, just really, and again, you're not fabricating something because you are generally in fear. You are, but it's especially because it's when you're seeing your abuser, your instinct is to, you know what I mean? Right. And so I'm just like, that doesn't, especially if it's an older male judge, they don't respond to that, And so I'm like, it's okay to be vulnerable because that also exists inside of you. And maybe we just like present that, Another really weird thing, and this is anecdotal, I'm not saying I'm not a lawyer, I'm just saying something that I've witnessed. I've noticed that the victim survivors who come without counsel, it kind of works a little better for them sometimes because they're really seen as vulnerable without having these access and resources. And again, not every time, I'm not saying, and again, I'm married to a lawyer. I literally love a lawyer, but I have seen it where sometimes it becomes this like, it's almost like you can see how they're really vulnerable and the judge picks up on that and is like, they need to be protected. Whereas if they look too protected, a judge is like, does that make sense? And I hate this advice and it shouldn't be that way. And there's plenty of lawyers, I've seen great stuff in the courtroom, but I'm just saying for everybody who comes to me, which is a lot of people who say, I can't afford counsel. Sometimes I'm like, well, that might work in your favor because you're going to see how exposed you are, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I'm hearing from you too, and the thing that, again, that makes this crime so like nuanced and complicated is there are a lot of things, right? It's like it criminalizes legal behaviors, right? Like it's not illegal to text somebody. It's not illegal to drive past somebody's house. It's the like repeated behaviors of doing that. And so also where you're saying like, not to kind of give the laundry list, but in a lot of states, like there is, like the crime is connected to, or the ability to sentence like is connected to the victim feeling fear. And would a reasonable person feel fear?
I was talking about restraining order court, not like when they're there for, I was talking about restraining order court. Yeah.
Got it. But I think it's it's an interesting like thing. And again, it sucks to have to put that on the victim of like thinking about, being really clear about that. But yeah, I'm curious to Lily, what your thoughts on this too, because I think that's also why we often advocate for things like keeping really detailed logs of stuff. Where like you have this documentation, and that's something where like Lenora, I know you've had to catch your own stalker, where like we are put in this position of having to really advocate for ourselves and showing up to police stations with binders of evidence. But Lily, I'm curious, just like from your perspective, kind of what it was like dealing with that element.
No, great. And I just want to reiterate what you said, the idea of criminalizing legal behavior and just the nuance of that. I mean, it's such a great concept and to be able to articulate so succinctly. So I have sort of a list of things that I kind of source when asked this. The first is taking yourself seriously, like I said, even when no one else does. This idea of self-care practices, these are kind of, like having things, where do you put your fear and your stress, and where does sort of emotionality, where, let yourself, and that, I think this sort of speaks to what you were saying, Lenora, is sort of, it's all, being the bad bitch, being the vulnerable in need, it's just sort of like being able to toggle between all of these emotions and know where, that having a dexterity with your feeling is really important, which we can get to later in terms of just survival techniques of living with something you can't control on the inside. Where does that go? I absolutely keep record of everything. When my stalker first started contacting me, the general response was this shit's weird, block him, delete it, have nothing to do with him. And there's a part of me that just felt like, no, there's something that's just too strange. So I just foldered constantly when it came in until he got my phone number and was sending packages. It was sort of harder to, I'd open the floodgates and then it just became a barrage. But I did keep really solid record. Except I think I got really upset and I deleted a couple of his voice notes that were pivotal. Had I kept them, that would have actually been much more helpful in building the case. So even if it's, that this whole idea of sort of stalking your stalker back, it's like, yeah, so shut the fuck up, don't engage, and yet watch him, know where not, watch whoever this is and know where not to be, keep track of them. It's a very uncomfortable position to navigate. But another thing is go to the police. And I'm not saying that the police are complicated, but I do feel like, and they don't necessarily aren't going to solve anything, but we need to have stalking reported. We need more accurate statistics. So I really feel like if you are in a position to do so and comfortable enough to do so, feel safe enough to go to the police, even if you feel like you're not acknowledged, that is very important for us to kind of have this backbone of information logged from the victim themselves. I think this idea of, for me, kind of the colloquial use of stalking and sort of beyond just my case and the survival of being a victim, I would say survivalism of being a victim. This idea of like stalking is not a compliment, and kind of how do we even use the language of stalking, where it's not something, it's not a testament of virility or strength or passion, or it's not something casual, but I really feel like part of, and this is not about, like I said, surviving being a victim, but if we all can kind of collectively start engaging stalking and using that term, understanding the scope of what it actually is, that I think will also really help just the whole kind of environment that we're talking about. Another thing is just being aware of your personal information. And that is, we talk about this idea of digital footprint, digital hygiene. Actually, Dr. Patrick Brady the other day was talking about, the criminologist whom we spoke with. He was talking about when you're getting your prescription filled, and they kind of repeat your address back to you and everyone in the line can hear you. Like things like this, right? I actually hadn't been aware of that. I mean, I have, a different name on my mailbox, and I've just only recently registered to vote again in terms of being on kind of accessible in that way. But that just sort of little details or areas of, so if you can write it down, like, just sort of tracking where your personal information goes, really smart in ways that I'm still learning. Yeah, and I'm saying with this is, basically I'm not suggesting that we all like live in fear and constant prevention, but can these little practices feel empowering and not like, fear-based, like I just said. Yeah, I think that's probably good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to add to that, I always show people how to wipe their address off the internet. It's super important. Like I can find everybody in 3 seconds, you pay a whole dollar to Truth Finder, right? So make sure to do that. And the other thing I just want to say really fast, because it's super important, is that, the differentiation between harassment and stalking, right? So let's just say you think that your situation is now elevated to the point where you're being stalked, right? A lot of times your friends and loved ones will just say, oh, block them, right? And that's really more appropriate for harassment. That's just for somebody that's shit talking you. If you're being stalked, like for example, I was able to catch my stalker because he wrote me and he told me that he was going to come kidnap me from LA Comic-Con. Had I blocked him, I never would have known that. Not to mention
Right.
the mountain of evidence I collected, right? Because you're assessing your own threat, like how bad it is. Sorry. So if you don't have the capacity to look at it yourself, have a trusted loved one do it, but you need to monitor.
Can I just jump in there briefly? In that actually that's been tricky, because this go for how many years I've been getting information on all fronts. From having a loved one or somebody else go through that is extremely complicated.
Mhm.
I've had partners, I've had my mother, I've had friends. I had an intern at a law firm for a while. It's just like, and they just cull through these mountains of notes. Again, my stalking has occurred from multiple angles, and looking for signs of danger, and it's like never ending. It's just never ending. So what do you do? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out how to handle it.
No, and that's the thing. It's like it's fluid, right? It's like where are we right now? What feels like the best choice given
absolutely.
And then people come in and out of our lives, and then you do have a trusted person, and it's
but the burden of that too. It's like, because then if your
right.
stalker's really, hating you and criticizing you and studying you and bringing you down, and you have a loved one reading that consistently, it's like, what does that do to them in your relationship?
That's right. I'm glad you brought that up. It is, that's a whole other thing that we definitely get into. Is no, it's so complicated. I mean, I don't know about you. I'm with my husband now, but the majority of the time I was single, so I was going on Tinder dates, and they would Google me, and they would know. And I was, a Tinder date's already awkward enough, and then they're bringing that, it's like the first conversation thing they want to talk about.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something too that I think, for us at Stop Stalking, we really want to address that as well, as being a support system to the people around a victim, because it can be scary, whether that's a coworker or, when it's something you don't understand. But I think for me, just understanding the term like vicarious trauma also helped me to understand, because it's like, well, I'm not entitled to these feelings because I'm not the one directly going through this. And it was so different from how I felt, which was really scared. And and so I think it's a really important thing too, that in helping survivors, it's also the people around them, and enabling them to be able to do that better, but giving them support as well. And Lenora, I'm curious, since you mentioned this, like what has sort of, I know, like whether it was dating or just navigating relationships, been like after being stalked? Because I know that's something that people really struggle with, like, how do I ever trust someone again? Like, how do I trust myself? How do I trust somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, well, first I just want to also throw in, a lot of us have health issues that we develop over time. It's something we never really talk about. Like for me, earlier this year, I had 11 mini ulcers. And I was like, wow, 11 years of being stalked, 11, that's so interesting. So I just want to bring that up too, is that the long-term residual effects of complex PTSD, right? It's like, for a lot of other crimes, you have the traumatic event and then you can begin to heal. With stalking, it's this ongoing thing. So it's just like the wound just poking at it, right? So when it comes to dating, I'm fortunate. I mean, I had a sexual assault 20 years prior, so I already had trauma, right? And then my stalker's talking about sexually assaulting me. So which is like, there's all kinds of, right? A lot of us are multi-trauma, so you're just carrying all this with you. So then you're like, how the hell am I supposed to? And my situation was unique with my husband. We were friends for 10 years. I'm not saying no, to feel someone out for 10 years and give them a shot. Like, I mean, I can't really say that to anybody. I really think it has to do with the comfort. But what I will say is that I was honest with them, right? I said, I'm up to my neck in male bullshit. And if you do anything, like from the jump, I was like, this is where I am. This is what's going on. You know, that was what worked for me. It's different for everybody else. But one of the things, my friend Catherine has this great company called Garbo. I think you guys might know about them, or maybe if not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for the listeners who may not know, Garbo, it's like a background check service. And I think they're linked up with Tinder now, I think is a new development. Because I just saw I got my stalker was on Tinder. I just got him booted. So even though he's convicted stalker, like, so it was a reminder that these apps, anybody can be, and I'm not saying don't date. I'm a very sex positive person. Please go out there and date. We need that. However, you know, it's really difficult. Oh boy, where do I even start? I guess what I'm saying is I always say that, like, risk minimization is the same thing with sex with a condom, right? We just try to minimize our risk and do our best. And it's the same thing. Like, you deserve to date, you deserve to have connection, you know? All you can do is just try and protect yourself to the best of your ability, right? And that's really kind of as good as it gets. It is a gamble. You know, I'm not going to say that you do X, Y, and Z and everything works out great, right? But I always, that's why I was so public with my wedding. I wanted to show people, because I always say I'm just like a mountain of trauma, like so much, right? But then, and again, I'm not saying that being partnered is everybody's happy ending. I'm just saying, if that's what you want, you are deserving of love, you are deserving of companionship, or multiple partners, or a fun time, whatever it is that you want, you're deserving of that. And like, again, all we can do is just do our best with it. I don't know. I feel like, Lily, I feel like you have some gems. I get so all over in my head because I see the faces of everybody I've talked to, you know, as I'm doing these things, and I'm always like, well, so forgive me if I get distracted sometimes.
No, it's where to come into it. I mean, I love that, like, what you said is that, you know, being in a couple, you know, love comes in so many shapes and forms, and we don't know what everyone's happy ending is. And that is very, you know, for me, I left a relationship that was very much impacted by this. I didn't want to be with anybody. I also, like you were just said, I had a very intense health meltdown. My body shut down, an autoimmune neurological syndrome took over. Since I've had a hip replacement, some really intense stuff hit the fan. My body collapsed, and, you know, it's hard to know what is what, right? And so I'm not interested in blaming it. I just know that I am where I am, and I deal with what's in front of me. But throughout all of this, it kind of one bled into the other, just fear, long-term fear, my mechanisms for handling my fear, which were pretty, you know, ruthless in a lot of ways. Anyhow, I wasn't looking for love. I remember dating people, and I was just like, are you looking for love? Okay, if the answer is yes, I will see you later. It's just like, and it's hard to know, is this because I'm stalked? You know, I don't, again, not the best question for me to answer, but it's all part of this big pot. So yeah, I will say, trusting people is a big issue still for me. It's hard. I really loved for a while I didn't want anyone to know where I was. I was happiest when maybe no one could find me, and I could just disappear, and it would take them 2 weeks to find me. Like, that was my safe place. So that has been, you know, how I've kind of, you know, where I've gone with a lot of this. And again, who knows what is what, but that's the landscape that I'm looking at. And so I am in a loving, happy relationship right now, and I'm enjoying myself. I'm in love. Like I just said, it's great. I'm happy to be here. It's committed. But it takes a lot of self-advocacy for me still. Like, I'm still, you know, not jumping around the house. You know, I've said things like, can you not say, I can't stop thinking about you? Like, there's certain things that just don't work for me. I like being known. I like when I am known where I am now, which is a huge thing for me. I'm like, wow, this is fascinating. Now I'm like, do you want to know where I am? You know, I mean, it's like, it's definitely a different thing. But I think just learning where I feel safe and feeling entitled to ask for that, and what it means for me to build trust is forever, you know, some work, interesting work.
Yeah. Thank you both for sharing that. I think it's such a important part of it. And I know can be in romantic relationships, but just relationships in general can be
Exactly.
so
It's all
difficult.
closeness. It's just,
And it's hard when you're going through this too, where it's like, you know, you meet up with friends and it's like, oh, what are you going through? It's like, this is not easy stuff to talk about. It's not like fun happy hour conversation. It's really challenging to navigate on, you know, just for any period of time, certainly in an ongoing way, the way both of you have dealt with that. um uh I have like so many different questions, but yeah, I guess just in general, I mean, is there anything just that like you wish, like if there's folks here who either somebody in their life or in general, like that you just wish the general population understood about being stalked? Um, and I'll just say I think it's something that when you know somebody that's been affected, I think like all of us kind of you have this shorthand. And that's what's so nice about connecting with other survivors or people who are connected to survivors, where like you don't have to explain why something was scary. But I think there's just this prevalence and assumption that a lot of people have, right? That like something like this will happen, or that like that stalking is a crime and that there will be something that can be done about it. And it's really so much more complicated than that. So yeah, I'm curious just like if there are things that you wish like society or like people's family or friends, I know it's kind of like a broad question, but yeah, I'm just kind of curious what your takes are on that.
Who do you want to go first?
Laura, I feel like you're the icebreaker today, Lenora.
Okay, that's what I said. No, I mean, my answer is just really simple. I think it just matters to the individual. You know, we're all so wildly different. Some of us internalize, some of us get very depressive, some of us get angry, some of us want all the attention. Like we're all so wildly different. I can't say there's one. It's just listen to your person. And then the other thing that I tell people is maybe that support, maybe it can't come from those people, and and that's okay too. And that I always tell people, and that's why I'm so grateful to connect with you guys, is the need for community and to connect with other survivors, because you may be blessed, which not everybody is, with the most open, loving, supportive people, right? But they don't quite get everything, but then you can connect with survivors and you're just like, oh my God, you get it. And there's something to that and I know for me too, like one of the gifts in working with our survivors is that I look at all these people and I'm like, these are all amazing people. These are all wonderful people. And I'm so sad that we're connected this way. But then I look at them and I go, well, it's not just me. I didn't do something fucked up. Like none of these people, you know, there's something really important in that community. So yes, I go back to your question about what can your loved ones do, but also maybe it's also time to seek out some other people that have that shared experience. And it's hard because with stalking, the community is not easy to find because we're all hiding out. We're all private. We're all so, you know, things like what your organization is doing, it's awesome just to like have these beacons of light to connect with others. So that's the thing that I never see people talking about, is the need for community, because that's really what got me through it.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. And yeah, that's definitely our hope. And I think an interesting thing too, what you said about, you know, that each person is different. And I think Lily, you spoke to this, is that even in an individual that can be different, right? Like it can be for years, you feel something about some way, you don't want people to know where you are, and, you know, and that process evolves. And I think that's a really important part to understand about people who are going through this, and to kind of follow their lead of where they're at. I know that's come up, Lily, in terms of, you know, do we want to be referred to as victims or survivors? And like that might change, you know, on the day to day, depending on how someone's feeling. But yeah, Lily, is there anything you wanted to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to briefly say, you know, for a long time, I refused to be called a victim. And I was like, I am bigger than this. This is not going they get me, I'm fine, right? And then actually calling myself a victim was empowering because I named that I needed help. I named that, and I think vulnerability / weakness, which, or quotes, just sort of is strength. And that's something that as a woman in the workplace and professional performer, finding power in my vulnerability has been, whether it's physical, all forms of vulnerability, but fear as sort of fear can really hang its teeth onto or sink its teeth into vulnerability in a specific way. I think the one thing that is just to kind of culminate is stalking, for people to know, that I would love for people to know at large, victims, survivors, people that know about stalking, people that know nothing about stalking, is that stalking is violence, period. And it's never the same for anybody. So you need to listen to the victim or the survivor. You, they, me, and those two things. It's violence and we have to listen. And that's why one of the reasons I've been so impassioned around our nonprofit is to give a place for victims to feel heard safely, feel heard. And for me, my creative voice throughout this process, finding a voice, leaning into this with my creative voice to mine a story, a project that saved me, along with helping others feel less alone. So those are the two things that how I've really kind of kept my head above water with all of this. But I think the importance of, if you want, what is your voice? Either it's just about your experience or your voice in general, but creating a space for voices to be heard safely feels dire.
Yeah, we will keep working on that. I know we're almost out of time, so I wanted to just ask you, you've both referenced a few times just like self-care as like an important part of it. Are there specific things that you've done that are just part of your routines that you found helpful, knowing it's not going to be the same for everyone, but anything that has been impactful?
Yeah, so I've been on this journey with everything where it's like, in the beginning, I was like in the pursuit of justice. I don't even know what that means, right? But that's what I thought I was looking for. And then after he was incarcerated and then he just got out and did it again, I was like, I think I'm going to work on healing, because I can't control that thing, but I can control my health, my well-being. And over this past year, as I've been sort of focusing more on that stuff, I started doing free yoga for survivors here in LA. And so I host it, and it's awesome. Just, again, I'm not blessed the way Lily is to be like, with movement and the grace of dance. I'm the opposite of that. I'm the person who I feel like I have a head and my body's a meat sack and I'm so disconnected from my body. And so for me,
You're not allowed to say that.
Do you know what I mean? It's taken me, but now I get it now. I always appreciated it, I appreciate it, but I'm not the most physical person, you know what I mean? So starting the yoga for survivors, and first of all, having the community where everybody there is a survivor of some kind, and that's been really cool. But then the practice of yoga and really just the breath work and the connecting, that has been, again, I know this is that's your whole life. For me, it's new, and it's been so transformative and so awesome. Because I already do all the other self-care. Believe me, I'm the hair and the nails. That's all that I do, all that stuff. And I enjoy that. But yeah, for me this year, incorporating yoga has just been awesome.
Yeah.
It's something I don't know what I was afraid of before. I mean, I live in LA. It's embarrassing. I'm just discovering yoga now. I don't know, but it's been awesome.
Yeah, I think it's changed a lot. For me, I think on sort of a psychological level, I containing, I have two channels in me. I do have the stalked fear channel. And then I with a very kind of dancerly discipline, I can just sort of fold that page over and be like, I'm going to put that here and I'm going to go here. And I'm not erasing this, but I need to be with this now. And Moving is incredibly therapeutic for me in all forms. I move things through my body. I have a very kind of personal, at times esoteric, at times very practical approach to what that looks like. But it is somatic based. It is pranayama, breath. Breath is a huge tool to move feeling, sensation. I've been looking a lot at how feeling, we have a feeling and then we have a story that we can build around a feeling, but what is the sensation of a feeling? And can I even come into my fear approaching the sensation of what a feeling is? And so I've all over the years, lots of different things. Right now, meditation is really helping me. Yoga continues. I mean, that's what I've done for years through my dance career. I taught yoga and also practiced in different forms of yoga. Picked up Kundalini recently, and that's been really fruitful. And then nature for me, just being with trees and the clouds. I mean, it's just like, wow, what is thriving outside of my experience, right? And so being with that. Also like laughter, good times. I mean, it just sounds like I'm reading from the pages of a book, but finding this space for comedy, brevity, levity, not wait, which one?
Levity, but brevity.
Yeah, it would be levity.
It's gonna be brief too. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's that.
It's actually such a perfect segue to our next session and our last one in this series. We're going to be looking at different methods of healing. So we're going to be talking to somebody who's an expert in sensory motor psychotherapy, as well as EDMR and also yoga. And so I'm really interested in exploring those. I also know somebody who, like, to me was the most like practical, like not into sort of like a lot of this stuff that might be helpful. And the thing that helped her most with stalking was hypnosis, which I don't think she would have predicted. I don't think I would have predicted for her, but it really helped. She would describe of that feeling of like, it's out the wind, like there's like you can pull a shade down and it's there and you can look at it, but it doesn't have that same, like that fear didn't have that same intrusiveness. So we're really excited about that on Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. And so I guess just in closing, are there things that give each of you hope when it comes to stalking and where we're at?
I'll maintain my icebreaker duty. So in California, we just got their coercive control law passed, which is so major. I don't know if you guys are familiar with coercive, but for the listeners who aren't familiar, it really has to do, literally the word coercion, right? And there's all the other crimes like financial abuse. It's like all the abuses that aren't physical, right? And that we knew were really awful, but how do we prosecute? So having that pass made me go, okay, wait, we're finally, right? So that, I don't know why people aren't talking about it more. To me, that was like I'm so pumped by that. I can also say, just from being in court, it is changing. The judges are getting younger. The judges are more educated. The judges are more aware. I feel it. I can physically see it when I'm there happening, right? And then also we have, platforms now for people to tell their story. That's how it's, I feel like we had Me Too, which what that did was it opened up the idea of storytelling, but it didn't really say to people, what next, right? Mm-hmm. Now that we've all shared our trauma, this big trauma dump, again, not saying that, but just whatever, is trauma is like unleashed, but like what? And so I feel like there's this new movement now where it's like people are really ready to take it to the next level. And that includes stalking, right? So that's really been incredible. I'm seeing, the laws and the technology are something that I'm constantly frustrated with. However, again, people we're catching up. It's just we have so much to catch up on. But I do leave people with that, is that it does feel different. It feels different than it did 10 years ago. And so it's never as quickly as we need or we want it to be. But I feel more but you know what? I say that today. I said that today. There's some days where something happens and I'm just like, it's never getting better. I don't know if it's the energy of being with both of you guys right now, but I in this moment when you ask me, I feel positive and I feel that it is shifting.
Yeah, I feel like something you're really tapped into, Lenora, is so actively is kind of stalking as it relates to policy and in the legislative system in a way that I really respect and that we need. And it's really comforting to hear what you just said in terms of the shift that you're seeing. You are seeing some shifts, and to acknowledge that. And that is ultimately, I think, advocacy from the horse's mouth, as we're doing here with Stop Stalking Us, but really policy change is necessary, and addressing people to handle stalking when it comes into the police department, and what is that interface, how do we collect the data and all of that. So I just wanted to say that in response to you. And I think for me, mine is a little bit more nuclear. And first of all, the fact that we're having this conversation is, and that basically when I'm talking to a lot of people about stalking, people are reaching out to me, and from the podcast to the nonprofit, and then just the conversations that have built from there. When people say, wow, I had no idea that was happening to you, and I had no idea how bad that was. Statements like, I had no idea how bad stalking was or is. And it's these little conversations that I have with people where they who had no idea stalking was what it is. It's that I'm hearing this more, and that is, it's more a part. We're sort of changing our everyday lexicon a little bit, and how where we put stalking in our conversations, in our narratives, and our rom-coms. What is said that. So I think also when people have been reaching out and just finding incredible comfort in hearing stories, and hearing my story and other stories that we're sharing. And it's really just sort of the human connection that's occurring more and more, and the recognition of people feeling less alone, and recognizing that stalking is this insidious endemic.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
No, and I did have one more point to say, but go ahead. It's separate, so go, Lenora.
Oh, I was just gonna say the other thing too, if we're just talking about culturally, like I remember when I was young and like OJ Simpson trial was happening, like the stalking element was never discussed really with Nicole. It was right. And so now if we're just looking at the way the media is portraying the crime, it's very clear with the Idaho case right now, that's all over the news, the stalking component, and just seeing that, just naming that, recognizing that. I mean, I always find it, my friend Jess and I talk about this all the time. She's a lawyer and a stalking survivor. We're always pissed off that they always, when we don't have accurate homicide stats with stalking, because they don't charge the stalking component, they just stalk. So the heaviest, the worst type, right? We don't know that. But it is moving to me to see that shift culturally. That, I mean, I can't tell you how many news shows, including networks I want nothing to do with, Fox News, who've asked me to talk about, I won't do it, but to talk about stalking in relation to Idaho. So like, that's a big cultural shift, big. And I hate that it takes the most horrific of crimes for them to listen, but the fact that they're even making that connection is so major, right? Yeah. Sorry.
I'm just remembering of one survivor who reached out to me and just left me this really long voice memo on Instagram after hearing my podcast, and said, I'm no longer with him, but my ex-partner sexually abused me, physically abused me, and I didn't even realize that he was stalking me. I didn't even know that that's what he was doing until I listened to your story. And now I realize that I have more trauma to process. And I was thinking, wow, it's just, and that's why, how can we make stalking the unique crime that it is? How can we recognize it? And again, we want followers. We don't want to be followed, all this sort of social media. It's like really in our space. But how can we, just our cultural zeitgeist, how can we pull it out from sexual abuse, domestic abuse, harassment, and understand it and talk about it differently?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also just want to acknowledge like the changes that you're both talking about, like didn't come out of thin air. And Lenora, the work that you've been doing on the ground and empowering other people, and Lily, the same way that you've been sharing your story and supporting other people and starting the nonprofit. Those are the things that are changing that culture. And I think the more that we can just, our friends, it's such an amazing community that like, yeah, hopefully someday like won't exist in this way because we won't need it, but our friends at Spark and Strictly Stalking podcast, like so many people who are doing this work. It's such an incredible community that really just wants, that all wants the same thing, which is people to be able to live in peace, in the peace that they deserve. Is there anything else? I know this stuff always brings up where it's like, oh, and I didn't talk about these like other things. Is there anything before we close that you want to add?
The only thing is I forgot to mention, when you asked me self-care, if I'm being really honest, it's my dog. My dog is like that's the thing that gets me through it. I just had to she just does so much for me. I know everybody has their own thing, but I owe her everything.
Beautiful.
I love that.
I think I wanted to just say, when I was talking about, having the time to self-care, having the time and the resources to do yoga, to meditate, to work with somatics, to dig into myself. I mean, what a privilege that is. And I just want to acknowledge that I am in a position to do that, and not everybody is. And so I'm very interested in talking about those stories and providing resources and support for people that aren't able to engage the way I've been.
Yeah, if anyone's in LA, they can message me and I can let them know about Free Survivor Yoga. So that's we kind of do it for it was every Sunday, but we don't anymore. But it's a thing. People are in LA.
Yeah. Thank you both so much. And yeah, for folks that want more information, we've got a lot of stuff on our website, stopstalkingus.com, whether that's resources. If you want to share your story, we would be honored to hear that from you. And Lily and Lenora, thank you both so much for everything you do and for sharing this time. It's really, this is how we start to chip away. And I get really daunted when I just think of how many millions of people are impacted by this, but the idea that like we can all come together is, it just gives me a lot of hope that change is possible.